Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Lisa and I like to talk about books and post about it on the internet. As you will see from the suitcase that is beside me, I have been kind of organising my stuff for packing to go on holiday next week. And while I was doing that, I was thinking about all the fantastic books that I read on holidays when I was getting back into reading a few years ago, which gave me an idea. And that idea is that obviously reading has become such like a popular thing to do, and there's so many great books that are coming out at the minute that there are probably books that came out a little while ago that people are missing out on because they're probably not talked about as much as they maybe were at one point, or they're just not as popular right now because some of these authors have newer books that have come out. So I thought I would compile a little list of books that I think that you should read this summer if you haven't already. So what I've done is I have picked 4 really popular authors, I suppose a mix of popular and my favourite authors, and I've picked 2 of their books to recommend. So for some of them that made it quite difficult because I think you should read everything they've ever written, but for the sake of this video not being 2 hours long, I just picked 2 books from each of these 4 authors, and then I have a pile of like honourable mentions to talk about at the end. So I'm going to go author by author. I'm going to tell you a teeny tiny bit about each book and hopefully you get some sort of inspiration or recommendation from this video. Recommending summer reads would not be a thing without mentioning Emily Henry. Emily Henry is quite possibly my favourite author ever, specifically for standalone books. I love a series as much as the next person, but there's something just so refreshing about being able to pick up a book and be finished at the end of the book. I love Emily Henry and her standalones, and I really hope she never gets into series, to be quite honest, because she does a standalone so perfectly. It is always a 5-star read. I think maybe one of her books wasn't a 5-star for me, and it was either You and Me on Vacation or Beach Read, which will let you know that neither of those books are the 2 books I'm about to recommend. So the first Emily Henry book that I think you should read if you haven't already is Book Lovers. Book Lovers is the second Emily Henry book that I ever read. I was in my annotating era, so you will see I have lots of tabs and highlights throughout this copy of the book. This book came out in 2022 and I read You and Me on Vacation first, and then I picked this one up and this one. After I read this one, I knew that Emily Henry was going to be an author that I read everything she ever released. There are a lot of people who are Beach Read fans, and I do like Beach Read. Don't get me wrong, I think I gave it like 4.5 stars when I read it. But Book Lovers to me is what Beach Read is to everybody else. Book Lovers is, first of all, about people and books. People who are into books, are in like the book publishing industry. It's just, I love that kind of character. This book follows Nora and Charlie, and Nora and her sister escape city life and they go to Sunshine Falls for a month to kind of relax, reconnect. And while Nora is in Sunshine Falls, she bumps into Charlie, who she knows from the publishing industry. I suppose there's a little bit of enemies to lovers vibes here, but just as people and as characters, Nora and Charlie are, to me, absolutely perfect. And I have reread this book at least once, if not twice, and now that I'm holding it up, I kind of want to reread it again this summer. If you have not read Book Lovers, please consider it. Please pick it up. It is just absolutely perfect. Nora is kind of going through a tough time. She's struggling with where she is. She feels like she's the one that men date before they find the one. The character growth in this book, perfect, absolutely perfect. So Book Lovers for me was an obvious choice when I was picking Emily Henry books to recommend, but when it came to picking a second one, that's where I struggled, because everything that came after Book Lovers was absolute perfection, in my opinion. I had a few contenders for this next spot, and the books that didn't make it are still absolutely perfect, and I think you should pick them up. So basically what I'm saying is, if there's any Emily Henry book that exists that you haven't read, pick it up. But the one that I'm going to recommend today is Happy Place, and I picked Happy Place because I feel like Happy Place is the perfect summer holiday read, because the people in this book are also on a trip. While this book is a romance and there is a lot of relationship drama happening here. It's also kind of found family vibes. We have a group of friends who go on this one trip every year, and pretty much Harriet and Wynne, who are part of this friend group, have been together for years, but they're actually now separated, but they don't want the friend group to know because they don't want to ruin this last trip to, I think it's like their friend's summer house or something. They are on this trip, and what they don't know is it's the last time this trip is going to happen because the house is being sold, and there's just a whole lot of, I don't know, just angst, I guess, tension, and this is a sprayed edge. And it's just absolutely perfect. I've read this one twice, and I'm considering bringing this one on the holiday that I'm going on next week because it's just so perfect. I have never read this copy of it. I have a hardback copy of it that I got probably on like release day when it came out. Okay, the next author I chose was Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this one I struggled with quite a lot because Taylor Jenkins Reid's newest release, Atmosphere, is perfect. Absolutely perfect, and you should read it. But it's not necessarily like a summer read. It's having hype at the minute. It's been talked about a lot. If you're new to reading, you've probably heard of it. You've probably seen it in bookshops. You probably know about it. That's not the point of the video. So I had a little look on my bookshelf, and I actually have quite an extensive Taylor Jenkins Reid collection. I own almost every book that she's ever written apart from 2, and some of them are like really under the radar books. There's some of them that are just like not talked about half as much as they should be. So Forever Interrupted is like an honourable mention, I guess, right now. It's just not one that I necessarily think that you need to read in summertime. But the 2 books I chose are, in my opinion, ultimate summer vibes. The first book is Malibu Rising. Again, we have a sprayed edge situation going on here. This book is unbelievable. I loved this book. This is set in Taylor Jenkins Reid, I think it's called like the cinematic universe, where there's like 4 books that are, they're not a series, they're not even really interconnected, there's just crossovers between them because they're all set in like Hollywood in the late 20th century. The other books in this series that are really, really popular are The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six. Now, Daisy Jones and the Six and me did not really get on that well, but I loved The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. But this book, Malibu Rising, is phenomenal. This is focusing on the Riva family. So Nick Riva is like the dad. He was kind of, I don't want to spoil any of the other books in case you haven't read those, but he's mentioned in the other 2 books. And it's kind of like family drama, but like rich people drama too. And it's really hard to explain this book without giving away the plot. But it's pretty much the Riva family, a house party, and drama. That's all you need to know. And then in keeping with the summer theme and also that little universe, the second Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I'm going to recommend to you is Carrie Soto is Back. That is actually not a book I own. It's one of the 2 Taylor Jenkins Reid books that I don't own physically. And that's because I didn't read it physically. I think I listened to the audiobook and simultaneously read it on my Kindle. And then planned on buying a copy of it to put on my shelves, and I never did. So I need to do that. But Carrie Soto is Back is part of the same universe. It's set in the same like time and like a Hollywood drama vibes, except Carrie Soto is a professional tennis player and you're following her on making a comeback, not wanting someone else to take her spot as the best. Again, it's not a series. It doesn't really matter what order you read these books in, but for me, I would say read Malibu Rising first and then Carrie Soto is Back. Okay, the next author I chose is Jessa Hastings, and Jessa Hastings I feel is so well known for Magnolia Parks that that's all people think of when they think of Jessa Hastings, and I want to change that because although Magnolia Parks is my favourite series ever, I am going to recommend you 2 different books by Jessa Hastings. So the first book that I want to recommend is The Conditions of Will. Look at this cover. This is very kind of similar vibes to the Magnolia Parks universe cover. It's just the artwork on it is just, I think, probably by the same person. The Conditions of Will. Now what I will say is this is a chunky book. This is over 450 pages and this is a large copy of the book. So if you had like the regular print of it, probably more than that, I promise you it's worth it. Again, this book is kind of family drama but also an exploration of character development, I feel. So Georgia lives in the UK and has to go back to the US because her dad has died, and basically she does not get on and does not like the majority of her family, her mother and siblings. She does like one of her brothers, but we're kind of exploring the reasons why she doesn't get on with her family and kind of what they did to her and how they treated her when she was younger and how no one is taking accountability for that. The part of this that is kind of really enticing for me as a reader is obviously it's called The Conditions of Will, and when the dad died there are conditions to his will. So in order for them to kind of get what they should out the will, they have to go on this journey, literally and metaphorically, and they kind of learn a lot about their dad and each other and themselves on this journey. We have Georgia, who gets on with one of her brothers, Oliver, but when Oliver shows up with his AA sponsor, Sam, Georgia and Sam like start this kind of flirting thing. Oliver doesn't like it. It's a lot of family drama, but it's like realistic family drama, but realistic in the sense of the bickering and stuff. The deeper problems I found to be quite hard to deal with, I suppose, while reading it. So maybe look up trigger warnings if family drama stuff is a bit much for you. The second Jessa Hastings book that I want to recommend is The Time of Your Life. And again, look at the cover. It is so stunning. This is actually the first book in what's going to be a series. I have no information about the next book or when it's coming out or what it's called. That information might be available online, but I didn't look it up before I started recording, so here we are. This book is rich people drama, and if you've read Magnolia Parks, I found this book to be very similar in vibes to that. It's like rich people drama. There is actually a crossover. Magnolia Parks' dad is like in a bar at one point in this. I cannot say the main character's name. I think it's Isolde, but we got Isolde and Joa, and Joa is the frontman of a very popular band, and when these two start up a little romance, there's lots of drama, there's lots of big emotions and a lot of bad choices too. So I'm actually really looking forward to the second book in this series coming out, and if you haven't read this one, I think that you should pick it up. And the last author I chose to recommend 2 books from is none other than Abby Jimenez. And Abby Jimenez is hugely popular in the book world, but I personally struggled to get into Abby Jimenez books. I started, I think, in January of this year to try to get into Abby Jimenez. I had never read any of her books and I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. And I started with her earlier books, and I think that that's where I went wrong, because if I really looked into what those books were about, so the Happy Ever After playlist and that like little universe, if I had looked into those books, they're not really books that I would be into, to be quite honest. But I found my Abby Jimenez books that I like, and it is her newer stuff. So when I moved on to the Part of Your World trilogy, I started enjoying it a little bit more. And I think what's important to note about Abby Jimenez and her books is she does write them, from what I can tell, in like 3s, but they're all like interconnected standalone, so you don't necessarily have to read the whole series to read one of the books from the series. So that is why I have absolutely no problem in recommending as my first book the 3rd book from the Part of Your World interconnected standalone series, and that is Just for the Summer. This book was my first 5-star read of 2026. It is also the first Abby Jimenez book that I fell in love with, and is now the book that will be the reason that I will always read everything that Abby Jimenez publishes. So Just for the Summer is the perfect summer read because it is set in summer. It is Emma and Justin spending a summer together, kind of knowing that at the end of summer their relationship has to end. They are both people who feel like the person that people date before they find the one. They both have experienced this multiple times, and they kind of meet online and decide that they should date each other, so then after they date each other they will meet the one. So they're kind of trying to counteract their curse that they think that they have. This book is so well written. There are so many, which is kind of contradictory to what I'm saying, because there's like little crossovers in this from obviously the other books in Part of Your World that I really enjoyed, but I feel like if you read this book without reading the other 2 books, you wouldn't recognise the crossovers, but you'd still really enjoy the book. So I really have no problem with recommending this as the 3rd book, and saying that if you don't want to read the other 2 books, just read this one. This one is perfect. It is so well written. It's a chunky one, but I didn't mind. It is literally just over 400 pages, but it's 400 pages of Fantastic writing, beautiful character development, and I just can't say enough good things about Just for the Summer. I will always think fondly of this book, and it's perfect for summer. It's literally set in summer. It's got it in the name. The second Abby Jimenez book that I would like to recommend is one that I've just finished reading just last week, and that is Say You'll Remember Me. I read this on Kindle Unlimited, so I don't own a physical copy. Say You'll Remember Me is the first book of a new trilogy of interconnected standalones. So if you are new to Abby Jimenez like I was, it might be a good idea to start with Say You'll Remember Me, because it's one of the newer series that she has coming out, but it's also the first book in a series if you care about that. Again, they're interconnected standalones, they're not really a series. Say You'll Remember Me is actually set in the exact same place as Just for the Summer. It's set in Minnesota, and there is teeny tiny crossovers between Say You'll Remember Me and Just for the Summer, even though they're not technically in the same interconnected standalone series, which kind of just feeds into the whole Abby Jimenez is like creating a universe of her books, so you can kind of pick up whatever book you want. Say You'll Remember Me follows our main characters Xavier and Samantha. I think it's Samantha. I'm going to Google it. Yes, Samantha. I was right, it's Samantha. Okay. So we have Xavier and Samantha, and they meet because Samantha brings her cat into Xavier's office. He is a vet, and they end up going on a date. They have a great time. It's pretty much like insta-lovey, but the catch is Samantha's actually moving away the next day. So Samantha is from California and is moving back to help take care of her mother. And basically the book kind of brings you through their long distance relationship, how they go about trying to make it work, the hardships that come with that. And I really like this book personally because I was in a long distance relationship before my fiance moved to Ireland, so I could kind of relate to some of the issues that they were having. It was kind of nice to relive that time in my life while also being in a much better place because he lives with me now. So selfishly, I want you to read this book, so if you have never been in a long distance relationship, you can see how difficult it can be. There's no particular reason I think that you should read this in summertime. It's not set in one season, it's set over like more than a year. 2 years maybe. I think by the time we get to the epilogue, from the beginning to the end, it's been 2 years. So it's not that it's set in summer, but it's just, I suppose, because she lives in California, it's sunny all the time. If you need an excuse to read it, there you go. So they are the top 2 book picks from 4 really popular authors that I think that you should read this summer. And now it's time for some honourable mentions. The majority of these books here that I'm about to recommend to you are recommendations because they are set in summer, and to be honest, I just liked them, so maybe you will too. And they are kind of older releases, like at least 2+ years ago, so maybe you haven't heard of them. The first one is Good Girl Complex by Elle Kennedy. This is the first book of a trilogy of books. I've not actually read the third one. I read the first and second and loved them both. It's a really easy read. It is set in like a small town. It's like good girl, bad boy. They're quite young. She's like 20 maybe. So like finding herself, character development, perfect summer read. She's literally sitting on a beach in the cover. Okay, the next one is Rogue One again because it's the second book in a duology, and that is Hook, Line and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is the second book in the Bellinger sister duology. It is the follow-up book to It Happened One Summer. Now, what happened with me is I actually read this one before I read It Happened One Summer because I didn't realise, I got them mixed up. I thought this one was first and the other one was second. So I read them in the wrong order, which is probably why I enjoyed this one better, because when I read It Happened One Summer, I already knew how it ended because I saw it in this. Basically, the whole duology, start with It Happened One Summer if you want. That one is the more popular one, I believe, but it's just, I think just because I read this one first is why I like it better. It's like 2 rich sisters. I can't really remember the plot of these. I think what happened in It Happened One Summer is that sister was sent to this small fisher town by the dad because she was like spending too much money and being a party animal or something along those lines. She was like becoming a wild child, and she was sent to this small town. And in this book, the other sister, I think, comes back. I think she arrives and has to stay in the spare room of a fisherman because there's nowhere else for her to stay. She is in town to help. From what I remember, they were restoring like a pub, a bar. And to be quite honest, I cannot remember what happens. I think she likes somebody else and she's like going after somebody else, and then he's like being her friend. I don't think it's necessarily that he's grumpy. I honestly can't remember. Maybe I shouldn't be recommending this book because I can't remember, but I did read this years ago. All I know is I loved it when I read it. Look it up on Goodreads maybe. The next book again is the second in a series, and it's not that I think you should skip the first one, it's just that I don't think the first one is necessarily for summertime reading because it's a hockey romance. This is also a hockey romance, but it's like hockey and ice skater romance. Whereas this one, he's a hockey player, but they meet in summer camp, so that's why I feel like it's appropriate for summer. So this is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the second book to Icebreaker, and then after this we have Daydream. So they're all set in like a college, a university, and we have an ice hockey player is the male main character in each book, and in this one we have Russ, who meets Aurora at a summer camp that they're working as counsellors in, and it follows them from there. They return back to college and we follow kind of everything. What I love about this is the group of male friends, the ice hockey players, and their friendship and their found family vibes. It's unmatched. The found family vibes from the hockey players in this is unmatched. Aurora, simply loved for her name. What a beautiful name. If you haven't read Icebreaker, definitely read that one, but if you have read it and you're ready to move on and you need a little push, pick this up this summer. Next, I just want to give a quick mention to this series. So the first book in the series is Done and Dusted. It's by Lila Sage. It's a 4-book series. They're cowboy romances. They are pretty spicy. I think I read every single one of these books on a holiday of some sort. They are perfect for that. I think they're available on Kindle Unlimited. Done and Dusted is the first one. I do recommend reading this one in order. And I love the names of these books. We have Done and Dusted, Swift and Saddled, Lost and Lassoed, and Wild and Wrangled. They're on the bookshelf right here beside me. Brilliant series. If you've not read this series, start with Done and Dusted, read all 4 of them. Thank me later. Okay, and the very, very last book that I want to recommend to you is a series. And part of me thinks that maybe I am recommending these books because I want to show off the stunning covers I have for them. If you've not read the Summer I Turned Pretty series, what have you been doing? If you've watched the show and not read the series, why did you do it that way? And if you haven't watched the show, don't watch it. Read these books and then watch it. These covers, I believe, are not available anymore. Honestly, in the shops, all I ever see are the TV show covers, which I hate TV show covers, but if that's all you can get your hands on, then go for it. This is my copy of The Summer I Turned Pretty. They are a nice length book. They're quite short. This is less than 300 pages. So this is The Summer I Turned Pretty. Then we have It's Not Summer Without You. Stunning colour. And then lastly, we have We'll Always Have a Summer. These 3 colours together, absolutely gorgeous. Everybody knows what these books are about. We'll cut to the chase. We have Belly, who is in a love triangle with 2 brothers, Conrad and Jeremiah. You need to pick a brother in the first book and not change your mind, because changing back and forth doesn't fly with me. I have, since the beginning and always will be, Team Conrad, and no one can change my mind. And if you pick Jeremiah, you're wrong. Okay, so that has been the 13 books that I recommend that you read this summer if you haven't already. I hope that if you watched this video the whole way to the end that you found at least one recommendation. If you did, let me know below what book you are going to pick up. Or if you didn't get a recommendation here, let me know a book that you loved and I will see if I can recommend something similar for you to pick up this summer. But if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future videos, and I will see you in the next one.